Welcome everybody. We are here for our 4 o'clock webinars. Agent training and everything. So the idea is what can I do to help you guys make more money, right? So the whole premise for today in our Thursday trainings in general is once again the opportunity to provide either sales ideas, prospecting. We talk about product illustrations. So today we're going to look at a creation that I made for the benefit of people to utilize, and we're going to call it our sales idea playbook. Now, I gave this out spiral bound, beautiful, beautiful copies to those who came to the summit we had this past weekend. And what I would say is I don't want to call this a masterpiece, but it's great. So now I will tell you guys this is about 18, 19 years worth of work putting into this, and it's really not finished. There's a lot that we can still add to it. But the idea is sound to really help people get started, okay? So when we look at how this playbook works, I'm gonna take my headphones out because it sounds like they're dying. Hold on. Can anyone hear me? All right. Someone just say hello real quick. I just want to make sure I hear the audio.
Hello.
Hello. I hear you. Okay. All right, so the objective for this playbook really is to provide a series of stories, as we've talked about in the past. And what I always tell people, it's not the products that you sell, it's the stories that you tell. And even that is stolen from someone else in the industry. So we don't steal from the industry. We complement by also repeating what someone else said, right? So the idea here is to talk about stories. If you master the story and the opportunity, then what you're going to do is you're going to be able to pivot and put any product into that story. Okay. So we have five major categories that a lot of people look at. And then from that, we have three strategies inside of those categories that will help you kind of enhance your value proposition. So the idea is how can we figure out the problem? And then how can we solve the problem? And really some recommended carriers I didn't put on here because everyone has their favorites. I'll put it that way. And we do have client profile sheets. I put them towards the back of this because what I would say for you guys right now is if you have a pad and pen handy, I would say use this time to create a prospect list. The whole point of the summit meeting this last weekend was to drive fourth quarter production. Fourth quarter production equals a pipeline of growing business for you to then ultimately leverage and push into 2026. So anytime I talk to some people about this, I'm very passionate about, having a strategic plan because a lot of times in our industry, it's the dog trying to catch the tire, okay? But the problem is there's always going to be more cars. So everyone starts looking at something else, then something else, then something else, and they forget that they just missed out on five sales because they kept looking forward to something different. So the idea here is if we write them down, it creates a process to start the strategy to help you grow your business, okay? If you don't write it down, you're going to forget it in about 30 minutes. Okay. So the categories that we have, it really goes from start to finish, from young to old, so to speak. We're going to start in diapers and we're going to end in diapers. So the idea really is that when you look at these type of scenarios, there are strategies that you can implement for juveniles. We talk basic needs planning, we talk retirement planning, which is where a lot of people like to set their sights and targets on, but there's a whole lot more to just retirement planning that you can do that a lot of people don't even realize. My favorite, legacy and estate planning, wills and trusts, things like that. And even so, from all this, business planning is so important, focusing on business owners. I didn't even have enough space in here to talk about things like, well, I did talk about long-term care a little bit. Annuities or stuff like that are not in here. So like I said, there's the ability to do more. But let's take, for example's sake, I'm going to focus on two categories today. I'm going to focus on the basic needs, and I'm going to focus on legacy and estate planning. Okay? Because there's so much here, I really don't want to go into the weeds on how all of this is set up. Um, so let's go to basic needs. And we're going to talk about three different types of categories or strategic plans that you talk to people. So income replacement, which can also be mortgage replacement, which can also be, kids and stuff like that. Career change, having a safety net. A lot of people don't think of it that way. So it's a reshift in the mindset or focus on how we can use permanent insurance. And then disability planning. So once again, I've mentioned this several times. We are missing the boat on disability planning. There is so much opportunity in the world of disability planning for recurring and residual income. So let's dive in first here. So a lot of people are always like, well, Phil, how do I approach a client? Well, I gave you conversation starters, okay? So I am a firm believer, uh, and everybody's different, okay? I'm not gonna lie, everybody is different. I'm a little bit more off the cuff when it comes to conversation. So because I'm monotone. I don't know if you guys know that yet, but I'm monotone. So for me, the idea is that if I have something that I'm trying to remember that's scripted, now all of a sudden it's just robotic. So I always am a big fan of having a conversation to ultimately drive home the point. And you actually do better, in my opinion, when you're asking questions to the client as opposed to pontificating. If you want to see uh, pontification, I have my recording from last night, the Back to Basics. Someone asked me if I had a client presentation, which I presented. So you can see the difference between a client presentation with a deck, which I would say would be better for a mass group versus having a conversation with people. And if you guys want to talk about stuff like that, I can show you that too. But simple stuff like income replacement, if something happened to you tomorrow, how long could your family maintain their current lifestyle? Always a great question. What's your family's most valuable asset? Most people say their home, but it's actually your ability to earn income. And how would your spouse handle the mortgage, kids' activities, and daily expenses without your paycheck? Okay. So those are simple starters for something as simple as term insurance, or at least starting the conversation. Now, my personal favorite is the first one. If something happened to you tomorrow, how long could your family maintain their current lifestyle? And the thing is that most people don't know. They just don't want to buy term insurance. So they're going to say, oh, we got a plan, and say, all right, well, what is it? Is it written down? How many times have you talked to someone or a family where they don't have a plan written down and then out of nowhere, someone passes away and it's all out slugfest? People are claiming that this ring belonged to them, this couch belonged to them. Hell, I saw someone, close to me drive up from Virginia with a U-Haul to pick up a washer and dryer and some china, and it's to Connecticut when we lived in Connecticut. So, I mean, stuff like that happens. But if it's written down, that's the most important part. So, really, what you're doing is you're gracefully challenging the person as to what is their actual plan. Okay. And they probably don't know how to figure out the plan. So when we look at basic needs, we look at income replacement. So life insurance ensures that family can maintain their current lifestyle and meet all financial obligations. This is a real testament to find out how in love, the parents are, and or the husband and wife are, because for me, I probably wouldn't. You probably wouldn't hear from me for a good 6 months. So if my wife passed away, um, the thing is that I've got my boys. Hell, I've this is the first year I figured out who their doctor was in 11 years of being in Tennessee. So, from a critical standpoint of what my wife does around the house, from a standpoint of keeping us going, she's a very pivotal person. So I wouldn't know what to do there. And then there's that thing, oh, by the way, it's called grief. So if you have grief, all plans are thrown out the window. The famous philosopher Mike Tyson once said, everyone's got a plan until you get punched in the mouth. So this is that situation. Something unexpected happens. What's the plan? And so when you have life insurance, it's that instant boost to create a sense of relief for someone that if they go through this, they have something there to help ease the burden. The mortgage doesn't stop, the bills don't stop. Just because you're grieving doesn't mean they're going to let you off the hook. So when we look at the type of demographics for this, you're looking at 25 to 55. Okay. And a lot of times as we have these conversations, you're going to see overlap between ages. Some ages will be very similar, but you'll also have to look at price point. So 40,000 and above in annual income with dependents is probably going to be where you'll have your sales that you don't have to worry will fall off the books. And I say that jokingly, but not at the same time. You have a license, you have a fiduciary responsibility, but if you have someone who is, say, 30, right, they're in the 25 to 55 range, and they saw this cool thing on TikTok where if they put $100 away for the rest of their life or till 65, they'll have multi-millions of tax-free income. Well, that's not the case. They probably need to buy term insurance to protect whatever they have. But when you have someone who has a lower income, you probably have to work on a safety net first, emergency funds, before you can even get to there because they're not going to pay the premium unless they have an emergency fund. So that's why we look at this, it's kind of tongue in cheek, but 40,000 annual income with dependents, family status, are probably married with kids or just married in general. They may have a fur baby they want to take care of, um, and also homeowners. So, what we saw here are the three main things from a demographic standpoint: married, kids, home. So, when you think about that and when you think about the clientele, as simple as term insurance, does someone have a mortgage? Does someone have kids? Does someone have, a loved one that depends on their income, a paycheck, then you have a need. And so what you'll find for this type of stuff, you'll look here at some of the financial characteristics, new parents of growing families, primary income earners, goal-oriented parents planning for college expenses. So if you don't make it home tonight, you should probably have about 150,000 per kid going towards college. Lord help me, that just made me remember my son is a senior. Um, so this will give you kind of that foundation. Now, once again, I'm not doing this to sound pretty because we all know this voice is a voice for silent film, but this is where if you have that pad and pen, you should start thinking about names of people in their 25 to 55 age range who have a mortgage, kids, and a house, or a combination of the three. Because this would be a conversation where you could literally say to them tomorrow, hey, I was just in a training seminar and they were talking about, people with a mortgage and kids, and it made me think of you. They're talking about basic needs planning, and so I was hoping I could spend some time with you. For those who are kind of getting new into it, it's very easy. You don't need a huge calculator or conversation piece to talk about term insurance. Usually it's just 10 times your income. It's the cost of your mortgage, and it's how many kids multiplied by 150,000 a kid. That's what you call the number, and then after that, you can figure out from there how much they want to put in term or perm and stuff like that. But the idea is to protect people from themselves, it's to protect them from what goes bump in the night. It's pure raw protection. Anyone have any questions on this? Should be pretty easy, but I always like to see if anyone has questions. Okay. So this is a different spin, if you will, for permanent insurance for people, mid-career, 30s to 50s. So as you can see, the income's a little higher, 75K. But the idea of having a safety net would be one of two things. And you have to think from the standpoint here of an entrepreneurial minded person. Okay. So when I say an entrepreneurial minded person, maybe someone is in a corporate setting, but they're considering independence. If some of you think this sounds familiar, so they're working, having a good time, making decent money, but they're thinking about taking aspirations and they're seeking tax advantage savings opportunities. So in this scenario, you have someone who's building a financial foundation, one, if they don't make it home tonight, but two, if they need to have some form of emergency fund complemented with a death benefit protection if they go out on their own, whether willingly or unwillingly, because some people are let go of their jobs. You have now a safety net that's available that is tax-free that you can take loans against to help you stay afloat. So, life insurance is a very unique product where you can do things like bridge income gaps. You can fund future business ventures. Anybody know of a famous person who used life insurance to fund a business venture?
Walt Disney World.
Amen. Amen, Gloria. I love it. Walt Disney made the most magical place in the world using life insurance proceeds. Ray Kroc bought out the McDonald's brothers with life insurance proceeds. So there's a lot of great ways that people can use this as a safety net, or to provide some type of living expenses in case things change. So mid-career, again, 30 to 50 is the age range there. And then last but not least in this basic needs is disability planning. Okay. So disability planning is extremely, extremely beneficial. All right. If you notice up top, 1 in 4 chance of becoming disabled during your working years. Okay. You have a higher probability of becoming disabled than you do dying during your working years. So if I could provide you, Mr. or Mrs. Client, 60% of your salary tax free for less than 2% of your annual income per year, would you be interested? Okay. So that's the hook. That's the idea to bring them to the table because a lot of times you'll come up with people who have something through work. Well, Mr. and Mrs. Client, what do you have through work? I don't know because they don't. Typically, it's around 40%, give or take. So, do you know that that's taxable? So, it's really not 40%. It's probably around 30%. Did you know we can supplement on top of that with a smaller plan, an independent plan that will allow you to protect yourself if you cannot perform the functions of your job? So picture this, if you will. I am a big Marvel fan. I've always been a Marvel fan. I had all the collector's cards as a kid, all the action figures. I was a big X-Men guy. Wolverine was my dude. But there's this little movie that came out a while ago called Doctor Strange. Okay, so doctor, world-renowned, brain surgeon, or surgeon in general. Well, one night he's driving down the road, texting and driving, and goes over the road, flips a lot, and then he has to go through surgery, and he's got pins in his hands, and he ends up for half the movie complaining about how someone sucks at doing the surgery and he can't perform surgery anymore, and he could have performed surgery better on himself. Well, in that scenario, he did not have a heart attack, he did not have a stroke, he did not have cancer. He was able to still perform all activities of daily living. So a life insurance policy with living benefits wouldn't have helped him. But to keep his foundation of life, a disability policy would give him 60% of his take home tax free. Now, why 60%? Really, the calculation goes as followed. It is basically you take your net income, whatever it may be, and then you multiply it by 60%, and then you multiply that by one minus whatever the tax bracket is, and that's what you would get for a monthly basis. So it's going to be 60% the tax-free number. If you have a very high income earner, you can couple on top of that with Lloyd's of London or the Peterson Group to get them up to 80 or 85%. Now, when you see the type of characteristics here, you have 25 to 60. These go all the way to 65. Occupation, any income dependent worker, especially high risk or specialized professions. A doctor is a specialized profession. A CPA is a specialized profession. A dentist, cardiologist. You talk about situations like that. A lot of doctors get small policies during residency and they think that's it. So it covers their $80,000 salary, not their $500,000 salary. So when you think about this selfishly from a producer standpoint, the big perk about disability coverage is it gives you continued renewals every single year until the client turns to 65 when the policy is over. So if a policy premium is, let's say, 10K, normally street level is 50% of that up front, and then you get renewals somewhere around 4 to 6% per year until the policy is done. So when you think about that, it's mailbox money. You're going to get referrals, you're going to get residual income. If you have a doctor who has a bunch of doctors below them in a practice, or a dentist with a bunch of hygienists, then the doctor or the dentist can now get discounts by having multiple people in the plan, and you can get a group plan. They can also get business overhead expense, which basically keeps the lights on if they can't perform the job functions anymore, and that's more money in their pocket. It's just by analyzing their 1040s. So this is a big spot that people miss when it comes to you know, true planning. So Chris asked, what's the equation again? It's 60% of the take home. So if I made 100,000, you'd multiply it by 60%, so that's 60,000. Then you figure out what the person's tax bracket is. So if they're in a high income tax bracket, top marginal tax bracket's 37%. So 60,000 divided by 1 minus, or actually multiplied by 1 minus 37, or 67% is the other way to do it. So what happens is that's you figure out your annual income from that. So about 60,000 would be multiply by 67%. So you're looking at like 45 grand or 40 grand, somewhere in there. So, but the cool thing is, like I said, residual growth and residual opportunity. And again, when you talk about people in highly specialized positions, so I did mention I mean, it's right here, doctors, lawyers, executives. You could think of physical workers in higher risk occupations. So theirs is going to cost more because it's labor intensive. Self-employed. Do you know anybody who's self-employed? I see about 26 people so far that are self-employed to a certain extent. So the idea is from this standpoint, um, you're finding the ability to look at the protection need. Now, yes, this is kind of like car insurance or homeowners insurance. If you don't use it, you lose it. However, between us girls, there's different things that you can get disability for. Mental anguish and anxiety, that's a big one. Um, your back starts hurting. No one can figure out on a screen your back hurting, but yet it could be an ailment that causes disabling events. Your neck. Who's got tech neck, right? So if you can't perform your job functions anymore, let's say you have a doctor making 500K, living benefits won't give you um, living benefits won't give you uh, protection if you can't perform your functions anymore. The Doctor Strange thing, he could still be a teacher. So if he had no disability, he could still go teach. He would just be making, 80 to 100,000, not 500,000 to 1 million. So if you have this disability policy, you can still get the payments from this and still go do another job. So you can collect both. So a question came up, how can we pitch this with doctors? Um, Mr. and Mrs. Doctor, it's great to see you. Some of the things that I do is I understand what you do, and you're very well at it. My job and my position, what I do is I help successful people such as yourself make sure that there are no pitfalls during their working years. For example's sake, I can help protect people while they're working, both against unexpected mortality to protect their family. But on top of that, one of the biggest things that people don't realize is there's a 1 in 4 chance that you might become disabled before you get to the retirement you deserve. So, for doctors especially, now I understand you probably got a disability policy while you're doing your residency, but I like to do free reviews to make sure it's still up to snuff with what you need in case something does happen to you. If you have a copy of your policy, I would love to see it and see if there's any updates or things that need to be done. So you're making the assumption they already have it. Some will be like, well, I don't have disability coverage. You don't? Wow, that's crazy. You have liability coverage for your business? Yeah, this is like liability coverage for you. If something happens, you're going to protect yourself. So a question came up, does DI policies go through underwriting? Yes, it does. It's a different type of underwriting. So you'll have a 15 to 30-minute phone interview. After the phone interview is over, they're going to ask things about morbidity and not mortality. So, have you had any surgeries like knee surgery? That's a big one. Joints is a big deal. Shoulder surgery, because what they can do is they can still offer you, but exclude your right shoulder or your left knee. So there are exclusions that they can add to the policies. Now, Chris asked an example of the companies. So Emeritus is a big one. They've come a long way in the doctor dentist world. The Standard is another company. Then we also have Mutual of Omaha is more for your blue collar workers, and Principal. Those are probably the main four that are really in the DI space. And then myself and my business partner Roderick, we work with athletes. Athletes, we do a lot of Lloyd's policies, so it's to protect, a higher net worth type individuals for specialty type of contracts. So again, showing you this because at this point you have to understand that the next step really is who can fit in these buckets, who can fit in these spots. So the prospecting list. And as I mentioned, I'm leaving next Wednesday for 2.5 weeks. So what I would love to do is really get, you know, you guys to write some names down and let's talk about it so we can start, implementing a process and how you can pitch or talk to those clients as well. Because all of this is like we're in a huddle, right? But it's what you do with this information after, which is going to have you score the touchdown or whatever sports you like. Okay. Um, so am I coming to Dallas again? No, I'm not coming to Dallas. I'm going to Germany. So I'll be out of country. Um, so yeah, I'll be gone till the 12th of October. All right, so I'm going to skip retirement planning because everyone always loves talking about retirement planning. I'll talk about legacy and estate planning. Gotcha. All right, so when you think about legacy and estate planning, different ways that you can look at this too. So the big one and the first one I would say is the will and trust opportunity. So do you know what happens to your assets if you die without a will? Kind of go back to what I talked
Go to
about before.
probate.
What's that?
Go to probate.
Probate. Are you in round two? Are you comfortable with your family going through probate to access your assets? You
Got a
know,
client going right now for 6 months, 6 years
6 years.
in probate. Yep.
Sweet mother of God.
Mhm.
So that's why, again, having it written down is so important. I joke about when Aretha Franklin passed away, there's like a cocktail napkin under her couch that suddenly counted as part of her estate. So if you don't have stuff written down, you don't know what's going to happen. And it's huge when you talk about it, especially for parents. Do you know what happens if both of you pass away unexpectedly? So, from that standpoint, we have a situation where who's going to have guardianship of the kids? One of my other agents has a client right now who is father passed away, mother's left, she's guardian of the kids, but they don't have it legally, documented that she has full-blown guardianship. And so the carrier won't even release the insurance policy until they send the right forms. So, and there's a lot of stuff that can be cleared up with a properly set up will and trust, a revocable living trust, or a revocable trust, I should say, in general, for your customers. Especially with the part with the spouses, passing away. So for me and my wife, we have my sister who would watch the kids, but she has 4 kids of her own. So I don't want my life insurance proceeds going to my sister's kids. I love my niece and my nephews. However, I don't love them enough that they would get my son's proceeds in case of our unexpected passing. So that's a big thing, especially when it's written out. That can go with business planning as well, especially if you have someone who is part of a group. You have buy-sell agreements for a reason. So will and trust is a huge, impactful opportunity. Now, I'll do a cheap, shameless plug here. We have a partnership with a company called Trusty Friend. We did a presentation on them about 3 weeks ago. What I will say is I'm going to put this link in here. If you haven't signed up for them yet, you should. How it works is you have a opportunity to sell different types of plans. So do-it-yourself plan, revocable living trust, last will and testament, power of attorney, HIPAA authorization, healthcare directive. That would be if I'm on a ventilator and I said do not resuscitate, my wife can pull the plug. Now, ironically, I said I want to be resuscitated, but my wife still said, no, we're both DNR and sign the paperwork pretty quickly. So I guess that's it for me. Um, but also includes printing and shipping. Now, there are other organizations that do it yourself, but it includes vouchers, and those vouchers can get lost, or you just really don't have a process with that. It's very hard to operate. Here, if I say add to cart, someone will actually call my client. I refer them, I fill out a form. It's actually here. So if I refer a friend, fill out the referral form, and here is all the information that they ask, and you meet for a time. Now, with this, just so you know, for you, for an agent, compensation 200, 300 if you want to add a paralegal involved, and then 400 for an attorney doing it, which also includes a mobile notary. So if you're not a notary, here's an opportunity, or you can add notary signings. So um, you get paid on these too, so you don't have to refer them out anymore. When we talk about things like ILITs, when we talk about special needs trust, for example's sake, is around 8 grand. You get paid 10% of that as a referral, and you also block out other agents from getting involved in your sales. So, like I say, cheap, shameless plug. But who has a need for a will and a trust? So adults aged 30 to 70, you could say with significant assets, or really family responsibility is more important. Net worth can be 100K or higher, especially when you talk about 100K, that includes your home. So a lot of times people, as we talked about in a prior screen, a lot of times people will think that their home is their greatest asset. It's really them, that disability conversation, but the home is still something of importance. Okay. Family status, people who are married, parents, or individuals' with specific beneficiary needs. So again, when you think about this, it goes back to that basic needs. You'll see how they sort of tie into each other on certain things. So parents, homeowners, someone that they're relying on, or someone relying on them, is where this would come into play. The whole point of all of this is to avoid probate at all cost. Now, a will put things in order. However, a will not avoid probate. What is the problem with probate aside from Gloria's client taking 6 months to do it?
Fees.
Fees. There's fees. Anyone have any time where you have a creditor in place?
Hmm.
Someone passes away, all of your stuff can be seen. So we talk about creditors, predators coming to get your stuff. That is exactly the big concern about probate. So if you have a revocable trust, it hides it from the creditors and the predators, and you avoid probate. So the money, the process, and everything gets streamlined. This is an easy layup for any conversation because more people need this than anything, and there's no underwriting, you know? So there have been plenty of people. I know someone who made over $600,000 in life insurance commission sales because they started with a conversation around a will and a trust. And it was uncovering assets. You find out because they have to put all their assets in there. Do you have an old 401k, annuity? Do you have, kids, term insurance? Your bank accounts? They ask for everything. So if you're there as a trusted friend, you have the ability to pull up that information and help guide them through the process. Be there if they do the attorney, you're there to help coach them on what's needed and offer solutions and suggestions for future conversation. Make sense? So it's a great lead in. There's no fees to join for that. It's very easy. Gifting. So this is a very unique one. So this is more for people who have a charitable mindset. whether it's charitable for their church, their charity. You could talk kids. So legacy, first one that we'll talk about is gifting more for the family. So when you think about this, they are people who probably have their retirement all set up. Substantial assets, probably 2 million or higher. And what we're looking at is mitigating tax exposure, but we're also looking for parents or even grandparents who want to leave a legacy. There's a reason why the Kennedys and the Rockefellers are still remembered. But also, when you think about this, and I joke with people all the time, do you remember your great, 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 great grandparents' name? Bet you would if they left you money. So, when you talk about the charitable opportunity, people nowadays can move $19,000 per person that they want to gift into a trust. So once again, going back to that T word, the trust word, you have the ability to move assets over there. It's now out of your name. And it creates a big bucket of insurance because the insurance is owned by the trust, bought on the person, and then the person has the ability to dictate how it is paid out. You ever see that old movie Brewster's Millions where Richard Pryor had to spend like $5 million to get like $500 million and he couldn't tell anybody what he was doing? The person had the idea that if he was sick of money, he would know how to manage it better. And the idea here is that some people have worked so hard to create this wealth, to create this, idea that they can put rules and guidelines inside their trust to dictate how their money is spent, even from beyond the grave. So it's a way for successful business owners, high net worth individuals, generous family members, reposition a gift out of their estate and also still control it for the rest of their, well, eternity or however long it lasts. Dina, to go back to your question, yes, the 850 does include a revocable trust. So it's a revocable trust and a will for the spouses. So this is gifting. So if I use the example that I have two kids, okay? My wife obviously has two kids. And so I can donate 19,000 per kid, 38 grand into a trust. My wife can donate 38 grand as well, or 19 per kid into the trust. And that is a lot of math. So that is 77,000, 77,000, somewhere in there. 76,000. I knew I was off. So 76,000 that we could put into a gift, into a trust, and then elevate that to buy an insurance policy for the benefit of our grandkids and beyond. So generational wealth. So you can do stuff like that from this. Or on the flip side is the other side of the coin. People want to give money to, their alma mater. So I always thought it was funny, seeing this bench is brought to you by Charles Swanson, from on a campus, but it means something to people. So I think that getting the building is a better, example versus a bench, but you take what you can get, right? But the idea of the charitable side is that you can provide a meaningful charitable contribution to a church, charity, of your choice, at time of passing, and you can do that through the same type of gifting strategy. So once again, prospect list. The other two are probably going to be a little tougher, which is fine. The idea is how do you stretch your mind to the opportunities? Will and trust literally is everybody. So, the idea is you should have conversations with people. And I tell people all the time, I was like, do you have a will and a trust set up? They're like, no. I was like, why not? Well, I feel like if I do it, I'm going to die the next day. I was like, well, I've had one for 8 years now and I'm still here. So, stuff like that is just, when you think about it, it's a poor, poor reason to not get a will and a trust. So, having that conversation, sitting them down, and going through the paperwork, it just makes sense. So worst case scenario, you're now getting 200, 300, or $400 an hour work, right? So and it's really important for the customer to get. So from that standpoint, again, write down the prospects and understand that if you have someone in those higher echelons, older ages, have gotten their retirement squared away, then think about the ideas of gifting. Have they ever thought about leaving a legacy to their kids or grandkids? How do they feel about their church or charity of choice? If there was a way where I could show you you could leave more with very minimal, if no risk at all, would you be interested? Absolutely. So that's the kind of idea with estate planning. Now, a lot of times I say to people, the reason why I like talking about estate planning more, less variables. So I'm not trying to fight someone who forgot why they're doing a LERP the next year. And it's the true meaning of life insurance. It's the idea of giving without receiving. It's filling a void or a gap, to make someone whole when you're no longer there. Because selfishly, we can do LERPs and talk about cash value, but 90% of them, I would say, are probably funded incorrectly. So we just have to do a better job of that, and then ultimately, talk about this type or this side of the coin too. So I have a hard stop because I have a 5 o'clock call, but I would love to see if anybody has one or two questions because we got 5 minutes.
I just would love the recording. That was good stuff, Phil.
I appreciate it, Cynthia. The recording will be on the YouTube channel. So again, if you are not part of the YouTube channel, you should subscribe. Why not? I mean, it doesn't hurt. So at Valor Financial, hell, I'll just put it in the comments section. So at Valor Financial, we're going to have all of the trainings there. Okay. For now, again, going up in a locker with my partner, Dina, who's going to help me with all that. So just make sure, like you'll see, I'm gonna load up two videos, our video from last night, as well as the video from today. And they're all here, ready to watch, ready to learn. So you guys, your homework assignment for the next, 3 Thursdays and Wednesdays is go back and watch a video in while I'm out of country. So I will say thank you. Appreciate the time, guys, and look forward to getting back at this. So I come back Sunday the 12th, so 13, October 15th, we would be doing a back to basics Wednesday night. And then the 16th, if I'm doing my math right, we'll be back at it for a Thursday training. So,
Hey,
um,
Phil,
yo,
did I hear you say that you're going to provide us with this presentation?
God, no, you're going to pay for this.
I need that presentation, Phil.
Yeah, Phil, you got
Yeah,
to
you
charge him
got the
$500. That's what you
presentation
said.
because you came to the summit. I'm
Oh, okay.
charged.
You talking about the blue
Oh,
book?
man.
Yeah, I'm charging $500 for that bad boy. So you got a freebie here, but I'm charging for that bad boy. So
I'll sell it to you guys for want it. Just reach out to me.
if you yeah, yeah. See what happens, Vivek. See what happens. So anyway, appreciate you guys. Have a great weekend if we don't talk. And let's make some sales, all right? Holler if you need me.
Thank
See
you,
you.
Thanks.
Phil.
Thank you,
Have a
Appreciate it.
good trip,
Phil.
man.
Bye. Thank you. See ya.